Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Good Dram Show with me, Chris Goodrum. Right, okay. I've had a few people ask if I would do a how to taste whiskey episode, which, yeah, interesting idea. I mean, everybody tastes whiskey differently, so it is something that I plan to do in due course, but not this afternoon, unfortunately. Right, this afternoon, this is going to be a two-part tasting episode, you lucky people, and I will be unveiling a first as well, which is really nice. So, what am I rabbiting on about? Well, you may remember a couple of episodes back, I reviewed 3 or 4, I think it was, non-bourbon American whiskies, including the Arkansas Young Bourbon produced by the Rocktown Distillery in Arkansas in the episode, and also after I tasted it earlier on, sort of for the World Whisky Awards, I'd contacted the owner of the distillery, Phil Brandon, and asked him, about sending me some samples and whether the whiskey that he was producing was available in the UK. As I've probably said to you, at the moment it isn't, but I believe he's in negotiations with an importer in the UK. But in the meantime, he kindly sent me a selection of the range that he produces. So I got 6, and I thought 6 is probably just a little bit too many for one episode. I mean, certainly I'll have a bit of difficulty cramming all the bottle pictures onto the title picture. So I thought, right, I'll break it down and we'll do two separate episodes. We'll look at both all the spirits he does, and I'll just group them together in 2 sets of 3. So shut up and introduce the lineup then, shall I? Right, okay, incidentally, probably should have mentioned this in the previous bit when I was doing the waffle. The distillery itself has only been in existence since about June 2010, and it's the first micro distillery in Arkansas, full stop. And it seems from reading bits and pieces on the web that they're immensely proud of the distillery, and certainly the distillery is producing some really interesting stuff. So in part 1 we're going to be looking at the whiskies, or the whiskey, should we say, spirit that he does. First off, we'll be looking at the Rocktown Arkansas Lightning, which, as you can see, is pretty much new make spirit, or white dog, or moonshine, or whatever it is you want to call it. So we'll be looking at that. This is the Arkansas Young Bourbon. Again, a different bottling to the one that I obviously tasted last time around, and now I know a little bit more information about the products. So I'll obviously talk about them in a minute. And this is the Hickory Smoked Whiskey, bottle of 45%, which I'll obviously expand upon. The Arkansas Lightning is obviously distilled from the same mash as the bourbon. This is bottled at 55%. It's distilled from a mash of 82% Arkansas corn, 9% Arkansas soft red winter wheat, and 9% malted barley. Like I said, the bourbon has the same mash bill as well. The Hickory Smoked Whiskey is slightly different in that it's a wheat whiskey. It's distilled from a mash of 91% Arkansas soft red winter wheat and 9% malted barley, aged in used bourbon barrels, or the barrels that they use to age the young bourbon in. So obviously it's legally it's a whiskey. So anyway, I think that's enough. So let's take a look at the moonshine. Right, okay, so as I said, this is no rye whatsoever, so it should be interesting. You know how I like my fairly high rye content whiskies and bourbons, so it's obviously completely unaged and bottled at 55%. So let's see what the nose gives us. Ooh, that's raw. That's new make spirit. Nothing soft and fluffy about this. It's oily, cereally, really pungent. Certainly reminds me of the spirit as it was coming off the Bruichladdich still when I was working up at Bruichladdich some years ago. Really intense. There's a pleasant sort of corny fatness, nascent corny fatness. It's not kind of like quite there yet, but you can sort of smell the corn, sort of almost kind of not popcorny, but that kind of thing. Little floral note, a little bit of spice, but this is pretty hardcore stuff. It has to be said. I mean, it's not light and fluffy like the White Dog that's produced by Buffalo Trace by any means. It's yeah, this is kind of raw materials, shall we say? Getting a bit of earthy spice coming through now. It's, yeah, I mean, it's nice, really nice, good clean spirit. Palate. Oh, that's intense. Whew. Oily, cereally, a little bit of corn. Certainly I'm getting some toasted wheat flakes on the finish. A little bit of that sort of rose petally mar kind of character. But oh, that's a hit. A little bit of spice coming through on the finish, but that's pretty much like I said, raw materials. Whether I would actually want to drink that on its own, like I said, it's not kind of soft and sweet and approachable and drinkable like, say, something like the Buffalo Trace one. This is definitely more natural, shall we say? Well, not that I'm saying that Buffalo Trace isn't natural, but this has a sort of, you know, a more sort of pungent, sort of natural kind of character, which is interesting. And yeah, it's not too bad. Good spirit. As per usual, I was really well prepared for this and forgot the water jug. So let's give it a little drop of water and see what dilution does to it. Well, that's just made it oilier. So a lot more pungent. Yeah, very, very, very raw. I mean, it's interesting. It's obviously interesting from a kind of perspective from, like I said, with any, if you're into your whiskey, then you know you really ought to taste new make spirit at least once, because it's the raw materials. It's the DNA of the whiskey. It's the basis for everything else, all the other flavours that come later on in the process, in the maturation process, I should say. But yeah, that's intense. A little bit softer, maybe a little bit more corn, a little bit sweeter maybe, but it's got a real, not metallic note, but a real grip on the finish. Again, yeah, like I said earlier, it's really very, very good spirit, but oh dear, it's not one that I would want to drink all of the time, it has to be said. Right, okay, so now let's take another look at the young bourbon. Like I said, this is a bottle of 46% and predominantly corn based. It's apparently aged for 8 months, would you believe, in small oak casks, 10 and 15 gallon oak casks, which is about 37 and 56 litres, which would make it make them around about, I mean, a blood tub, for example, which is probably one of the smallest casks that's used in the whisky industry, which is predominantly used or was used in the beer industry, is only 40 litres, and obviously the quarter cask, which is used quite successfully by Lefroy, is 50 litres. So we're talking, very small casks, which is obviously where this picks up, so much wood, and they're brand new. So I mean, it's just like kind of all that oak suddenly sort of, being sucked, all that character coming out of the oak, obviously means that it picks it up really quickly, and you obviously wouldn't want to age something in brand new quarter cask for too long, otherwise you would get sort of, far too much oak. But anyway, let's see what the nose gives us. That's intense. That's a big nose. Lots of corn. Not hugely fat, but a lot of corn. A lot of hard-edged, earthy corn. A little bit of toasted wheat. The oak is all not majorly subservient. It's kind of sitting in the background, and if you take a sort of a big smell, it has that lovely, buttery, almost French oak kind of character. I remember when I tasted this the first time, it really had that sort of French oak kind of character. A little bit of dark fruit, a little bit of cherry possibly. Not quite as New World Shiraz as I remember it the first time I tasted it, but it's got a real intensity to it. Big chunks of earthy spice, not rye spice. It's earthy, but there's a sort of a lovely, almost violety, light perfume note as well. Really complex. I mean, it is, it's a big noseful, it has to be said, and seriously impressive. A little bit of citrus now. That's damn good stuff. 8 months, would you believe it, palate? Wow, that is just so different. I mean, it's like no American whiskey that I've tasted. It is lots and lots of creamy vanilla, toasted oak. Like I said, it's got this French oak character with Shirazi black fruit, pepper, a little bit of earthy spices, cinnamon. Oh, just a huge cinnamon hit on the finish. Really rounded, soft. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, if you cast your mind back to the last episode I did with the non-bourbon American whiskies, and one of them was the Colorado whiskey again, which was 3 years old and had been aged in small oak casks. Obviously, they probably weren't. I mean, I don't know whether they were new oak or not. It called itself a bourbon, so I imagine they were, but it had nowhere near the integration, nowhere near the toasted oak tannins and full fleshy mouthfeel that this has. I mean, this is just absolute stunning. I mean, I said it last time, and I will say it again. I have an issue with the young raw character of a lot of American micro distillery whiskies, but this is just so polished. God knows what they do to it. I mean, it's just, you know, they obviously have some absolutely stunning cask makers, and you know, as we've seen from sort of tasting the white dog, you know, that the spirit is just really nice and clean. And you would have thought, you know, I mean, yes, it is. There's a lot of oak. There is no getting away from that. It's obviously a style of whiskey you kind of like, or bourbon, as the case may be, that you would have to like. But it's not overly oak dominated, if you see what I mean. Although, it's still lingering. It's just absolutely sensational stuff. And like I said, you know, if they do manage to get an importer and get the stuff over here, then you know, I'll certainly be stocking it. Right. Okay. So let's have a look at the hickory smoked whiskey then. Unlike the Balcones Brimstone, which is smoked post distillation, this is smoked pre distillation, or should we say, the corn is cold smoked prior to milling, so it's almost like, you know, using peat. You know, it's exactly the same kind of concept, except they use hickory. So theoretically, it should give it sort of, you know, a nice kind of sweet hickory smoked kind of character. So let's have a look. Obviously young, not as much oak as say the bourbon, but then this is because it's been aged in, you know, used casks. The hickory smoke is it's kind of quite light, and it's there, if you see what I mean. It's slightly sweet, with a little meatiness. I think at the moment, I mean, although I really like this nose, I think it's a really interesting nose. It just the youthfulness of the spirit is just a little bit sort of overpowering the hickory smoke. I mean, it's certainly very, very enjoyable. I mean, again, you'll have to like sort of young spirit to get along with this, but I don't think it's quite. It's not quite there with, as is the bourbon, but you know, I like this nose. I think it's nice. A little bit of woody spice. Yeah, nice. Palate. Quite a full palate, youthful, a little bit of the rose petally mar, toasted wheat flakes, a little bit of maltiness. Again, the hickory smoke is very subtle. Seems to more come through on the finish with a light hickory, smoky, meaty, lightly meaty, barbecuey kind of character. I think it's work in progress. I mean, it's interesting. It's nice. It doesn't quite have the complexity of the bourbon, but it's good spirit. I reckon, you know, give that a little while longer in cask, get a little bit, you know, a little bit more maturity into the spirit. That will be really, really drinkable. So yeah, I think that's a little bit chocolatey now. Yeah, a little bit of sort of dusty chocolate on the finish. So yeah, I think that's really very, very good. Enjoyable. Right. Okay. So let's sum this up then. Rocktown Distillery, really, really good spirit. They're producing some really nice spirit. And they're obviously geared towards producing a quality spirit. The new make is very new make. It's what you'd kind of expect it to be. It's not the easygoing, soft, sweetish sort of Buffalo Trace or even Glenglassaugh kind of new make. It's more kind of Bruichladdich, more Bladnocky kind of new make with that sort of like oiliness, that pungency. Yeah, it's interesting to look at, but whether you'd want to drink an entire bottle, of course, is another thing. If it comes bottled in sort of 35 cls or 50 cls or whatever kind of bottles, like Glenglassaugh do, then yeah, I think that would be really, really interesting. The bourbon, I mean, I can still taste it now, even after tasting the hickory smoked whiskey. It's just absolutely stunning. I mean, it's sensational. It fully deserved winning award at the World Whisky Awards, and I really do hope that Phil manages to get an importer, because I think this is going to be big stuff. I really do. I certainly think it's, to me, better than the Balcones. I mean, and that's probably one of the most well-known ones. I mean, it's probably the best micro distillery bourbon, whiskey, spirit, whatever you want to call it, that I've tasted, because it just doesn't taste raw and untogether. It's just it's just amazing. The hickory smoked whiskey, yeah, I like it. It's nice. It's interesting. Again, I think it would all come down to sort of price with regards to that one. I think this is going to be absolutely stunning, given a few more years in oak, just to sort of like take the edge off the rawness of the spirit, get some more maturity into the spirit, and maybe a little bit more wood kind of character. But I think that's going to be really very, very good, and something quite different. So yeah, really, really interesting tasting. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode of the show, and obviously I'll obviously keep you informed of progress, and if the bourbon does become available, then it will be up on the website. So yeah, that's it for part one of this particular show. So all I have to say is good afternoon, good Dram.